And elsewhere, the United States is preparing to lift long economic sanctions against Sudan, citing the country's improvements on human rights and progress on counter-terrorism as its reason. In July, the Trump administration had postponed a decision on whether to remove the sanctions completely for 3 months, setting up an October the 12th deadline. Lifting the sanctions, which is opposed by some human rights advocates, suspends a trade embargo, unfreezes assets, and removes financial restrictions that have hobbled the Sudanese economy. It's also a major turnaround for the government of President Omar al-Bashir, who is wanted by the International Criminal Court on charges of orchestrating genocide in Darfur. The sanctions decision reflects an assessment that Sudan has made progress in meeting Washington's demands, including cooperation on counter-terrorism, working to resolve internal conflicts, and allowing more humanitarian aid into Darfur. Now let's get more on this with a former Nigerian representative to the UN, Ambassador Ayola Olukoni. Thanks for joining us, Ambassador. Now, Sudan has fulfilled all necessary conditions relating to the sanctions placed on it by the U.S. What do you make of this?
Well, thank you for having me on this program. I think this is a very interesting development. I'll just describe it as a very interesting development. And if you remember that indeed the Obama administration, before it left, had eased sanctions in a way. And I think this development is a very interesting one, coming especially from the Trump administration. But let's see what happens in terms of what eventually happens when they give their final decision, make the final decisions.
Now, some rights groups have raised concerns, saying that the lifting of the sanctions could lead to further abuses by the government. Do you see that happening?
Well, in this context, the possibility of things like that happening can, of course, is also possible. But my answer to that is this: that as far as the conduct of international relations and diplomacy is concerned these days, a large number of civil society groups are now very, very active in this particular front. And in the area of human rights, especially, the Human Rights Council, which replaces the Human Rights Committee, gives a platform to a lot of these groups. And so it's possible that they'll be able to, of course, come forward with evidence. And specifically, as far as the case of Sudan is concerned, one of the very active groups is Act on Sudan, which has written a letter specifically to the Human Rights Council to draw attention to this, that it is not yet time to lift sanctions on Sudan because of the crisis which has happened. And it is real. Darfur is still there. South Sudan is also still there, even though internally South Sudan also has its own problem. So these are the various dimensions to this particular issue. So the human rights group will continue to act as a pressure, because don't forget, like they said, there is no human rights paradise anywhere. That's why we have the Human Rights Council. And a lot of these groups have very, very strong influences in those particular areas. And I think this is one of the things they are leveraging on.
Now, Washington says that Sudan needs to resolve its internal conflicts and let more aid into Darfur and other border areas, among other conditions. Is this achievable by Sudan?
Yes, of course. I mean, definitely. All members of state of the UN who are signatory to the whole array of institutions as far as humanitarian issues are concerned have obligations under those conventions and arrangements to ensure humanitarian. Don't forget, even when at the end of the day people agree that, look, we will not stop fighting each other, they agree that we will fight each other in a more civilized manner. So it is incumbent on Sudan to ensure that indeed the humanitarian dimension of this crisis.
Ambassador, do you see the lifting of economic penalties being a major turnaround for the government of President Omar al-Bashir?
Certainly, any country who is under the sanctions, UN sanctions or any other sanction, especially by a powerful state like the UN, once those sanctions are lifted, will benefit a lot from it. We only need to go recently to the whole question of the Iranian crisis. I mean, between Iran and the Group of Four, the lifting of sanctions benefited Iran, no doubt, because a lot of economic relations went on, doors are open for companies. Certainly, I think this is one of the strategic views, the strategic moves by Sudan itself to be able to, of course, have more room to play, and of course also sort out his economic problems by ensuring that sanctions are lifted.
Well, but in spite of that, the President al-Bashir once hosted Osama bin Laden, and he's now wanted by the International Criminal Court on charges of orchestrating genocide in Darfur. Is this why he's been indicted?
No, let us get it clear. I don't think this is why he's been indicted. The ICC is an international process, and the Rome Statute. There are regulations, there are procedures, and the entire process as far as Bashir went on. Went through. So the indictment, of course, is there. There's a legal dimension to it as far as that is concerned. I don't think he's been indicted because, of course, was indicted after the cases and everything went through the ICC process. So that's a different thing altogether in terms of indictment. But when you come under the indictment of the ICC, then implicitly countries can take action. The politics of the ICC is a difference altogether. But there's about it that for the president, of course, he himself is being hunted, and of course continue to hunt him until if he is able to overcome that problem. It's a big problem. It still remains a big problem for him. Why the United States is, perhaps closing its eyes to reach out to him and Sudan in this situation goes back to the whole issue that, look, in international relations, there are no permanent enemies. You only have permanent interests.
But the former U.S. President Barack Obama temporarily eased off some of the sanctions that effectively cut Qatar off from the global financial system. Could this in any way have helped to cushion the already bad situation in Sudan?
Except you have the nitty-gritty of it. A lot goes on in conduct of relations between diplomatic relations between states. And like they say, the figure after 6 is more than 7. For various reasons, or one thing or the other, some Sudanese companies and others may have benefited as far as this is concerned. The United States itself, the Obama administration, before it left, it must also have in a way, benefited. Maybe there's some cooperation in the area of the question of some specific terrorist group who they think that Sudan can help to apprehend. A lot of those things goes on. And I think that's one of the reasons why, because if the Obama administration did not see anything is going to benefit, they would not have eased sanction briefly. And I think that was one of the things. And then this next move, of course, is also perhaps maybe to move forward as far as the Trump administration is concerned in terms of pursuing its own specific interests. But there's no doubt about it that the little ease of sanction, by the Obama administration must have in a way be of benefit to the Sudanese government.
Now, just before I let you go, Ambassador, do you see the possibility of the U.S. lifting the ban come October the 12th?
Certainly, if it's going to be of benefit to the U.S., I'm sure that it will come soon. And don't forget what I said, that in international relations and conduct of diplomacy, there are no permanent enemies, you only have a permanent interest. And if it's going to be in the favor of permanent interest for the United States of America, I'm sure they will do so. But the question is, at the end of the day, the people of Sudan too should be at the heart of the matter. And I think that is why I think those are the people we should consider in terms of what's to be done as far as the crisis in Sudan.
Well, October the 12th is just a few days away, and so we'll see how that plays out at the end of the day. The former Nigerian representative to the UN, Ambassador Yola Onukani, thanks for your time.
Yes, thank you, BC, for having me on the program. It was a pleasure to be with you.